The Book of Enoch concerning the fallen angels. Revelations from this Apocrypha Covert writing. Enoch is considered to be the seventh after Adam, the patriarch of the Jews who lived in the years before the Great Flood. Methuselah's father, Lamech's grandfather and grandfather of Noah, is considered by the Christian tradition to be one of the two prophets, and the other is Elias, who did not die, but both were raised alive to heaven. It's believed that they will both return to earth in the years of the Antichrist, as stated in John's Revelation, and will be the last witnesses of the faith before the second coming. Revelation 1:12. However, many dispute the historicity of Enoch's face, recognizing that this is a collective title for a class of people, spiritually sophisticated, who taught the rest of science and the arts as accepted by Elena Blavatsky's theophysical system. The same circle believes that the names of Prometheus, Orpheus, the god of Thoth or Hermes, the Erdis of the Muslims, or other persons mentioned in the mythology are collectively the same. I'm translating this from Greek. Now, the Greek article. Now, the prophet Enoch is credited with writing a text containing the prophecies about the coming of the Messiah, about the coming of the world, the end of the world, talking about the fall of angels and giving detailed descriptions of hell and paradise, the movement of the planets and the weather phenomena as well, and much more. This book, whose teachings are believed to have been transmitted through oral tradition, is not included in the books of the Old Testament and is regarded as a mystical text, though it may have influenced not only the Pentateuch of the Jews, but even the very revelation of the Apostle St. John, and also the letters of the Apostles. The Fathers of the Church. The early Fathers of the Christian Church were strongly influenced and praised, such as Saint Irenaeus, Saint Justin, Saint Clement of Alexandria, Saint Athenagoras, the Apostle Saint Peter, and the Jewish historians Josephus. Nevertheless, none of them agreed with the narration of the fall of the angels, as we'll see below. In fact, it's not considered a heresy book. It's not considered heretical, even if it's not included in the Old Testament. According to the scholars, it's most likely that it was written in the Hebrew language during the years of Babylonian captivity. This was about 700-600 BC, because many of its descriptions, such as the old days, resemble those of the prophet Daniel. It's certain that he had undergone variations in his copies. This book had gone under variations in the various copies, and while it was well known in early Christian times, the traces disappeared around the end of the 8th to the beginning of the 9th century AD. The English travelers Bruce and Ruppel found a copy in Abyssinia written in the Coptic language, and in 1811 it was translated into English by Bishop Lawrence and then into other languages. As mentioned, the point that triggered the reaction was the story of the fall of the angels. Christian tradition holds that an angel, the fallen angel, that is Lucifer, probably the highest in the angelic hierarchy at that time, because of his arrogance, made him want to be above God, distanced himself, and the angels were divided into two factions: those who followed him and those who responded to Archangel Michael's call, "Stand will, stave off fear." The former, along with their leader, were permanently banished from the hierarchy of light and turned into the dark demons who have since been overseeing the divine work. Many traditions of the Roman Catholic and Orthodox Church have been created on this view. The Book of Enoch has a different view of the divine work. The divine Theo Ergo, the divine work. It came to pass that the sons of men the sons of men were slain in those days, that they were beautiful and good daughters, and they looked at these angels, the Son of Heaven, and said unto one another, Nor do we elect a woman of our own from men and give birth to children. And Marianas said to them, O Lord, if them not, I'm afraid you won't want this to happen, and I'm the only one who owes a great sin. They were all judged, like all sworn oath, and cursing everybody else, not to turn away from the earth until we have done it and done so. And they all shrugged and blushed at each other. They received a woman of their own, each of them elected a woman of their own, and came to them and sat with them and taught them pharmacy. What's the word for that? I guess makeup, and radiance, and herbs, how to use herbs, and also begat children with them that were giants. These people were not subsidized. The giants dared them and seduced the people and sinned, and they sinned with fowl, beasts, reptiles, even fish and other animals. So you can understand it wasn't just with humans, it was with all types of living things. And then the earth succeeded against the unjust. And then there was the evil that the giants spread throughout the earth. The narrative goes on to detail the arts taught by angels to women and the evil that the giants experienced on earth, the evil that they spread throughout the earth, until the four most powerful angels, Michael, Gabriel, Suriel, and Uriel, cast their gaze upon them, and happened so that they informed God, and God decided that the fallen angels would be thrown into the depths of the abyss forever. The giants would be wiped out of their own hands, and sinful genders of humans to be wiped out by the flood. The priest begged Enoch to intercede for them with God, but he replied that the angels intercede for men and not the other way around. And continuing in the text, it's of great interest that the giants will produce evil spirits called spirits of evil. They will not be eating, they will not be drinking, they will be invisible, and they will be held liable, responsible for every tribulation endured by humankind. They will be responsible for all human suffering, that is. There have been several attempts to interpret the above narrative, which is the heretical point of the book. It must first be pointed out that such a text can be allegorical, and its actual interpretation is based on keys, quote-unquote, without the knowledge of which it cannot be interpreted. And we rely on what the verbs describe. Sons of God, bred with inferior, quote-unquote, women. Some claim that the translation of the word Elohim is incorrect because it's translated not only as angels, as in Enoch, but also as sons of God, or virtuous people, that is. So sons of God, virtuous people, were reproducing with, quote-unquote, inferior women, and for that reason, not the angels of God sinned. The truth is the Hebrew word Elohim is a plural meaning gods or powers, and B'nai Elohim means sons of gods, as in Genesis in the phrase, his sons are not perfect. God, the daughter of men, Genesis 6:2. The explanation of this point in my translation, Brother Savior and Vasiliadis, claims that the sons of God are the descendants of the pious generation of Seth by God, and the daughters of men are the descendants of Cain, the which is characterized as corrupt. One of Tassili's most famous works shows what appeared to be some kind of a vehicle with a rope, drawing a group of women who appeared to be abducted the sons of God took the daughters of men, as in Genesis 6:2. There were 200 of them who came down in the years of Jared. In the text, Enoch states 200 were those who descended in the Jared years on top of Mount Hermon. Mount Hermon. So if they were people, from what point did they obviously come down to them? To descend somewhere, it must be from higher up. And what is higher than a mountain? This, along with the interpretation based on the sons of God as the offspring of Seth, brings to mind the occult false book of Adam and Eve, where it stated that the Protestants driven out of the paradise, those are the they're the first created Adam and Eve, were driven out of paradise, lived on top of a high mountain after Abel's assassination. Cain's descendants lived on the foothills of the mountain, however, and forbade the pious to descend and coexist with their one-time relatives at the foothills. So the descendants of Seth lived on mountains, and the descendants of Cain lived at the foothills. But even if we accept this as an explanation, the text refers to quote-unquote descendants on Aradis. So we do not accept that the pious of the peak of the mountains descended onto the side, but some higher than that term. The interpretation of the word people, quote-unquote, does not explain the products of this union, namely the giants or Nephilim, as mentioned in the texts. If they were humans, why did their reproduction lead to the birth of giants, also referred to in Genesis? And the giants were upon the earth in those days. And with that, as if the sons of God had been brought to the daughters of men and born to themselves, they were the giants of the century, the people of the name, Genesis 6:4. While in Numbers 33:13, he mentions that they were sons of the Anak, and it is recalled that eventually the flood did not destroy them, but some at least survived in the area of Palestine. Born in the flesh and spirit. Another argument of those who accept the wrong translation is based on Genesis, where God states, "My spirit will not remain with those who have been flesh for centuries." Genesis 6:3. So if we look at the text, however, we find that the word people, quote-unquote, can refer to the giants and not to the descendants or fastidious parents. The meaning does not change if we consider this and agree with the book of Enoch that, born of spirit and flesh, their dwelling is the earth. I therefore consider that the argument also expressed by St. Augustine does not exclude the correctness of Enoch's text. But the central argument of the book's critics is that, according to them, the angels cannot be born as spirits. We will stay here longer. In the Gospel of Matthew, Christ states that, quote, "They are neither raised up in marriage, nor are they consumed, but as angels of God in heaven," end quote. And building on this, the book critics claim that Christ himself has given a definitive answer to those theories. But again, God could mean not the angels as a whole, but those who choose not to join the righteous angels who responded to Archangel Michael's call and remained in paradise. It is by no means clear whether the angels are capable of creating life or not. Angels are supposed to be spirits, at least in the Orthodox tradition, that are necessarily depicted in a young male form in iconography like the demons. However, the latter had been accused of insulting live men and women in the form of incubi and succubi. I do not know if a childbirth case has been reported, but there are many cases of sexual contact. The Sacred Inquiry accused witches of inhuman acts with demons. Church saints say they had been tormented by them. Childbirth by gods, goddesses in a common tradition throughout the world. and the Immaculate Conception of Christ and others was mediated by a spirit, and it is assumed that the Antichrist of the Christian tradition would be the product of such an illegitimate conception. What usually escapes the attention of all those who deal with the subject we are negotiating is the attitude of people's daughters. Why did they accept at least the contact with spiritual entities that were apparently completely different from them? Throughout nature, the female must feel an attraction for a male, which may be nice or ugly, however, it resembles the individuals of its kind, the like kind, with the exception of at least one perversion. So could the rapids, the egregori, egregori, I don't know how you would translate that, these rapids, have deceived women by appearing in human form? Could these fallen angels have deceived women by appearing to them in human form? Yes, well, that's what the Apostle Paul tells us in the New Testament, that the evil one even can, the demons can appear as angels of light. Now, of course, they could. The whole Old Testament and the book of Enoch say that angels can obtain human form when they want it, so they should reasonably appear in front of them as humans, even though they're not humans. Can you imagine that? This is unbelievable. So how would the human females wouldn't be able to tell if they were humans or not, because they look like humans, they act like humans, they have a human body. So if they did not know their identity, they might as well have done it. Otherwise, God would have no reason to be angry with women, as they were the victims of fraud. But the God of the Old Testament has so many human flaws that no one can be sure of how he would react. The deception of Eve by the snake, the serpent. Christian perceptions appear to place the fall of the angels in pre-human times, before the creation of Adam. Genesis reports that Eve's deception from the serpent occurred in paradise. So the fall should have happened earlier. However, Enoch tells us that it was during the Jared years that these fallen spirits descended on Mount Hermon, that is, in times when humans were already living on earth, driven out of paradise for many generations, at least 6 in number. And if the apple actually symbolizes the knowledge that a spirit never had to reveal to humans, then one could assume that the author of Genesis had in mind Enoch's narrative, though he or others took care of it to censor it and cover it behind symbolism. Lamech, Noah's grandson, got married, and when his wife gave birth to a child, horror seized his soul. The child's flesh was white as snow and pink as a rose, and his hair was white as well, and his eyes were as blue as the sun. As soon as he opened his eyes, the room lit up, and as soon as he opened his mouth, he began to praise God. He was the child of an angel. Lamech, fearing it was not his own child, but an angel, sent his father Methuselah to Enoch, who was already living with the angels, to consult him. Enoch assured him that he was his own child, narrated to him the fall of the swift angels, and prophesied that Noah would survive the cataclysm that would destroy the people and products of the former associations with the fallen ones. At first, Noah's image resembles albinism, a disease in which no melanin is produced in the body. No albino, however, can speak since his birth. In Lamech's question, it seems that the belief in the reproductive abilities of the angel was common, that in other words, they knew about this problem, and could not have been influenced by Enoch, since the latter had just then revealed to Methuselah the fall of the Magi and the ensuing cataclysm. The fall of the giants, that is, and the ensuing cataclysm. Creation of the white race, the Caucasian race. Could Noah's description be a symbolic reference to the Caucasian of the white race? Unfortunately, there's no confirmed evidence of such great antiquity of the Jews, nor are there any references to the appearance of Noah's sons. Here, as in the story of the Cataclysm, it seems perhaps more probable than ever that the copyists or the writers might be influenced by their earlier sources. Enoch was already living with the angels in a place far away, but accessible to Methuselah. What is that place? What this place might have been, nobody knows. However, after that, Enoch ascended to heaven. Do the views of all those who claim to be not angels but intelligent beings from other planets colliding with mortals on their flying vehicles, given birth to giants because of the differences in genetic material, stand to reason? I leave this to your own judgment. The Church introduces a new doctrine. The Book of Enoch was presented briefly with great emphasis on the fall of angels and less on the birth of Noah. But of course, the text includes not only these facts, but also descriptions of other realms of existence, interpretations of celestial phenomena, the names of the quote-unquote masters of the archons of celestial bodies or angels of the forces, as they are typically mentioned. These excerpts contain many obscure points and are a good starting point for study. The exclusion of the book from the Old Testament series is understandable in that what is described contradicts the traditions that the Church pursues in its attempts to impose a new doctrine, free of old beliefs and similar doctrines. Whether or not this Church has succeeded in an issue not covered by is an issue not covered by this article. And God's cruel punishment, hard punishment. The God of Enoch is a typical God of the whole Old Testament, tough, punishable, impatient, majestic in the face of his omnipotence, unmoved in front of the apologists of the fallen, with suspicions of human emotions and chiefly of rage. The demons that torment people are not in the Enoch of the fallen ones. They are rather described as sad figures as opposed to the Christian tradition that considers them guilty of all evil. In the Book of Enoch, these spirits of the giants are the ones causing the suffering, trapped in the inferior material dimension from which they were born. Knowledge is considered sinful. The concept of knowledge acquisition is also ambiguous. On the one hand, it's considered sinful, which was transmitted by the quicksand, and on the other, Enoch offered plenty of it. In other words, while giving away some astronomical and astrological knowledge, he accuses Kivil, Tamil, and Asarabel of teaching the same things to the daughters of men. The similarities with the history of the Titans, especially with Prometheus, are evident, and one wonders if all this technological culture that we have developed that can destroy but also save began with a whirlwind, or is it a divine gift, which God, which we accept to be the perfect being, would have defects so vindicative and so human that he would deprive his beloved creatures of knowledge to improve their lives. For this reason, the Book of Enoch, irrespective of the correctness or not of his narratives, like all of the Old Testament, offers fertile reflections on religious theological issues and not just issues. If you'd like to join me on my Patreon account, you will hear content not covered by mainstream media. These riveting stories will be based on my research, and I will state my opinions and give my personal insight on diverse and controversial subjects and world events not covered by mainstream media, and not supported by YouTube guidelines. So whatever I have on my Patreon, most of those will not be on my YouTube channel. Please consider becoming a member today. More of the most significant and important videos will be on my Patreon channel. Your support helps me to continue my research and keeps this YouTube channel alive. And we depend on your support, your generous charity, because we help economically challenged families here in Athens, Greece, in Kapota, and we also help the young generation with university tuition and the community around our church. Thank you.